Hey, what's up, friends? Grant Baldwin here. Welcome back to the Speaker Lab podcast. Excited for you to join us today. We've got a good conversation that's about to happen. And a lot of times we are talking to just one person. Today we're going to be talking with two, and not just any two. We're going to be talking with a married couple about what it's like to speak and also work together and somehow still like each other and remain married. So today we're going to be talking with Reggie and Patrice Wright. And Reggie is actually, we had him on recently in episode 471. So it was a phenomenal episode. Definitely go back, listen to that. Reggie went through one of our programs a couple of years ago, has been crushing it, and also works with some of our students still today. And then we quickly learned that there's a mysterious woman behind the curtain, which is Patrice, who really makes the trains run on time and keeps Reggie in line. So looking forward to chatting with you both. Thanks for joining us. They are fresh off vacation. You guys feeling good?
Yes, very good.
Yes,
Thank you for
sir.
having us.
All right. First of all, why don't you give us some
Yep.
snapshot here? How long have you been married? And who hit on who first to get the relationship started?
We have two versions.
I'm gonna definitely let you go first because your story is just completely different.
It's
So go
very
ahead.
similar. We just err in one section. So we
Okay.
we will be married 20 years, July 23rd, and we met at the gym playing basketball, and so I saw him in the gym, and seeing him there made me decide I'm going to go shoot first today before I
Okay.
go do my weight training. So I
There you
was
go.
putting myself in a position to be seen. And
Atta
then
girl.
as I'm shooting on the side basket, Reggie came over and was like, "Do you want to shoot with me on my basket?" But his version
Oh,
is a
that's
little
cute.
different. That he says that my ball kept rolling on his court and it was bothering him, and so that's that's why he asked me to come shoot with him, so he didn't have to like chase the balls down. But I don't believe that inside.
Reggie, you got any thoughts here?
I mean, it's accurate up until she gets to the point where she says like, "I wanted her to come shoot." No, she's telling the truth. She was shooting on the side
Mhm.
basket. I was shooting on the main court, and her ball she kept missing. So her
Yeah.
ball kept coming onto the main court.
And I
So
mean, I
I,
played a little basketball in my day. You got to brick it pretty good to be sending the ball that far away to the next court. So,
I'm not gonna say she was breaking it, but her ball just kept wandering to the main court. And I'm like, if your ball keeps coming over here, how about we just work out together?
Mhm.
So like let's just make this a family affair.
Mhm.
and
So
20
that was
plus years later, you can't see right now. Patrice is rolling her eyes significantly, but 20 plus years later, it has truly become a family affair. So, all right, let's talk about this. Again, a couple episodes ago, Reggie, when we had you on, we talked about your speaking journey. You've been absolutely killing it, crushing it. But Patrice, I'm curious from like your perspective when Reggie comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm kind of intrigued in this speaking thing. I want to pursue this as a career."
Mhm.
Like, what are you thinking? Because I think that for every spouse out there who's going, I want to
Mhm.
be supportive of my significant other, but also like
Mhm.
we have responsibilities, and there's only it's hard to chase a dream and still also like eat and live indoors. So when he comes to you
Mhm.
with this idea of I want to be a speaker, like what are you thinking?
So I will say in our relationship, I have always been supportive of whatever Reggie has wanted to do. And I always feel like because I trust his judgment and I know he does his research, that gives me confidence in knowing that if he decides he wants to do something, that he's not just winging it and, being willy nilly with things. So even though I'm more like I like to plan and have things lined up. He's a little more, he likes to plan, but at the same time, it's like when he decided, when I gave the green light to say, okay, we can renovate the bathroom, I came home from work the next day and it was gutted. He was like, okay, let's go. So it's the same thing here with speaking. It was like once he knew I was on board with, okay, this is what we're doing, I'm going to support this and let's roll with it. It was like he jumped right in. But yeah, I would just say over all of the years, because I know he makes sound decisions. I feel like I trust his judgment and jump on board with whatever he wants to do. I'm here for it. So Yes, that's my
And so
answer.
whenever it comes to like the speaking business in general, there are, I think a lot of times there's the glamorous, sexy part of I get up on stage and I speak, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes of marketing and sales and logistics and paperwork and just like staying on top of like, a lot of little details that if they fall through the
Mhm.
cracks, it really creates a bad experience. And so I know that that is one area that you help him with today. And so
Mhm.
Reggie, like at what point did you start thinking through like, all right, I'm starting to book some gigs. I'm starting to gain some momentum. All right, there's a lot of balls I'm trying to juggle, and I'm starting to drop some of them. Maybe I need some help here. Like, kind of, what was your thought process there?
Yeah. So initially, I had a relative helping me out from just the very beginning. I was kind of proactive in that regards. I kind of figured like if this takes off, I already want to have things kind of in order, so that I can manage and manage well and be proactive. So I had a relative, a friend of the family, helping me out, and she was doing a really good job. But she was trying to juggle between helping me out and working her full time, her nine to
Yeah.
five. So then I was like, that's not really working because I need things to be done with a standard of excellence. So I need somebody that can really invest the time, energy, and effort to help me scale the business. And she was doing a good job, but I knew Patrice could do just as good of a job, if not better, because I knew that she would have some, as an old school saying, some skin in the
Yeah.
game. Right. So Patrice is working full time as well. And she took over the reins for that. And, she's been doing an excellent job ever
And
since.
Patrice, what was your full time career, and are you still doing that?
So I retired as of June 12th, and
Oh,
yeah,
congrats! Like that's
thank
like
you.
within the past couple of days. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I was there 11 years. I was doing teaching PE, and then the main job was athletic director at a private school.
Wow, very cool. All right, so he comes to you and he says, "Hey, I need some help here. I got this family friend that that it's doing okay, but I think you could do arguably better," which is always going to be the correct answer, Reggie, of course. And so, like, he comes to you, like, what are you thinking? Because there's on one hand, like, okay, if I do this, I might be able to do it better. Maybe we get to work together. We get to spend some extra time together. Maybe I save us a couple bucks versus paying someone else. But also, there's just the like it kind of changes the dynamic of the relationship in some ways. And so, how were you thinking about that when he approached you of like,
Mhm.
hey, what if you work with me?
I think it was an easy transition because I feel like at certain points of our married life, we have always worked together in some way, whether we were leading a basketball camp together, or, we worked at the YMCA together for a while. Like there's just various things that we've done working together. And I feel like I've always been Reggie's administrative assistant with our life. So it was kind of a natural transition, just to slide into that, and it's still part of administrating, just a different realm, I guess. So it was
How did you
easy.
figure?
Grant,
Reggie, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, Grant. When I was playing professional basketball, Patrice used to rebound
And I
for
did
me.
stats.
So if anybody,
I said,
what'd you
and I
say,
did
Patrice?
stats. I kept your stats during your games.
She did. She kept my stats when I was playing overseas, but when I was practicing and training, she literally was my
Hmm.
rebounder. So the way they have ball boys that rebound for us before games during practice, my wife would do that for me, in the early stages of our marriage before I became a professional athlete. So she's been believing in me from day
Yeah.
one. Like she is my day
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
for
for
real.
yeah, literally. So whenever he kind of throws this idea out there, I think it sounds like you both are like, yeah, see how this could work. How did you kind of
Hmm.
figure out like how you kind of divide responsibilities? Who's doing what? Because there's certainly going to be things that Patrice you may be better suited for, Reggie you may be better suited for. So how did you kind of divide and conquer?
Yeah. So I'll jump in with that one. So we kind of work it out like I'm the visionary. So it's like I cast a vision. We'll have like a team meeting between the two of us, or whoever's on staff. My son works with us as well. He's 13. His name is Isaiah. So we'll kind of have like a family meeting or a team meeting or a staff meeting, and then I'll kind of just cast a vision, and Patrice then will go out and kind of execute the things that we've discussed. And execute can mean she either does it herself if it's something within her wheelhouse, or she'll delegate it to someone else or find the correct source
Hmm.
to make sure the job is done and done well.
And so even Patrice, whenever you said, like literally within the past week or so, you retired, kind of walk us through what was that process like? Because it's one thing to help your spouse or significant other on the side of like, yeah, in my free time or in the nights or weekends, or whatever, I can help you. But I have to provide some here as well, and we need this. But at some point, like something's going well enough where it's going, maybe it would make more sense for me to go all in. So like, what was that
Mhm.
transition like?
So yes, so I feel like the transition happened in my mind, I would say, when I was noticing or realizing the amount of income that was coming in from the speaking part of business, and seeing how lucrative that was, and that basically he was making more than my annual salary in 2 months, or something of that sort, that it was a no-brainer that my time would be spent more wisely here doing this, where it's building for our family and legacy for our son, and all of that, compared to, if I'm working outside for someone else, that's building for them and not us. So it was it
Right.
was it was really, it just made sense.
And
But it's a year too late, Grant. It was
Said
a
I
year.
should have did it a year
It's a
ago.
year overdue. It's a year overdue. So she's giving you the picture, Grant. But the audience, they want
Yeah.
everything, right? They want to hear everything. They want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So the part that was rough was initially my first year as a full time speaker. I wanted her to resign. I wanted her to retire the first year and come on board as my COO. And that was a little bit of some tension there because she wanted to kind of wait and see how things would play
Mhm.
out. And that kind of put some stress and strain on things in regards to she was trying to do her full-time job as an athletic director. And essentially she was also working for Reggie Wright Enterprise full-time as well. So after that first year, like she said, she saw the income, then she saw the income for the second year, and then it was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. Because I told her, I did the math. I'm like, you're spending 160 hours a month times 10 months as a 10-month employee. Like you can do that and generate, you can
Mhm.
10x what you make as an AD and still go back to the school and volunteer if you
Mhm.
want.
yeah, you can have your cake and eat it too if you really
Yeah.
want to. And Reggie, you kind of touched on it there. And again, I alluded back to episode 471 where we talked about this more, but maybe kind of catch us up and give us some context. Like, how many gigs are you doing? If you guys are comfortable sharing, like, what are you charging for gigs? And give us like some context of what the business looks like today.
Yeah, so I think I end up making that year when we first talked somewhere around like 170,
And this
175,
and this
something
was
like
like
that.
how many?
My
And again, for context, like how many years into speaking was this for you?
No, I made 175 in year one. So it wasn't a full year. It was 10
That's
months.
crazy.
10 and a half months. February to December, to give context, right? February was the first gig until the end of December of 2023.
And when
So
in
we're
there
now
did you join the Speaker Lab? As far as like going through our program.
I joined the program the gap week of 2022 between Christmas and New Year's. I call it the gap
All right,
week.
so December 2022 is when you joined.
Right. And I started the actual program. I started doing the work and going through the modules the day after New
All right,
Year's.
so January 2023, and so January 2023, or excuse me, 2023, basically for 10 months of that year, you made 175. Is that right?
Yep. I got my first
That's crazy.
gig 35, my first paid engagement 35 days into the program, into the Speaker Lab
And we
program.
talked about it again. I would tell everyone go back, listen to episode 471 because we're going to walk through like in that one more in depth of like, yeah, but how'd you actually do that? So definitely the answer to that question is in 471. Go listen to that. So Patrice, like this picks up very quickly. I mean, to do 175
Mhm.
your first year
Mhm.
is massive. So obviously you're seeing like, okay, there's something here. There's
Mhm.
something here is working. This isn't like a flash in the pan type of thing. And so it sounds like you're also probably starting to feel the tension of, all right, I'm helping him, but I'm also working as an AD and he's
Mhm.
gone a lot. And so what is
Mhm.
that doing just in terms of like your relationship and what's it like within your family?
There, I would say the tension was more so of, I feel like, him always needing my help, and me feeling torn of, I need to and want to help him, but at the same time I also have the responsibility of what I'm doing as an AD. And there was, that constant like, okay, I need a proposal sent now, and or I need a follow-up email sent here, and it was just like, wow, like it was a lot. I balanced it and I managed it and I was able to get through it. But as he said, it felt like if I would have done that the year before, that probably would have eased that a little bit. But at the same time, I may not have felt as secure financially at the time. Like I think there was baby steps for me. Like he wanted to dive in and I was like putting my feet in at the
Yeah,
edge.
yeah.
But I don't know, it's God's timing, but at the same time, it probably could have been, we would have been further ahead if I would have jumped in sooner, but we are where we are
So
now.
if you had yeah, again, it's always kind of like hindsight,
Hmm.
2020. And again, like you're talking obviously very, very fresh from retiring, literally like
Yes,
within the past week or so,
yes.
walking away from, your steady, secure career and gig.
Hmm.
And so was there anything that you guys did maybe in terms of savings or anything just from a practical standpoint that made you feel better, Patrice? So like, okay, this is still a risk. It's a lower risk than it was,
Hmm.
6 months, a year, several years ago, but nonetheless, it's still a risk. So is
Hmm.
there anything that you guys did from a practical standpoint that just helped you just to kind of feel at ease a bit more?
Yes, for me practically, and we talked through this with our financial advisor, was getting to the point of, for a comfort level for me to have 6 months of savings in the savings account for all of our expenses. That made me feel like I could take a breath. That if I jumped into this and things didn't go as smoothly as I wanted to in the beginning, it still wouldn't make me feel the pressure of, oh no, there's no money in the account. So that's what I think when we got to that point is where I felt like, okay, like this is working. Like I have a little gap space there in case or there's a rainy day. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was it for me.
Grant, the income double, Grant. That was that was it. The income double. Monthly it
It did.
doubled. Annually it
Yeah.
doubled. So she was ready to jump in at that. I could have threw her in the pool at that point,
No
Grant.
more, no need to dip the toes in at that point.
Right.
Yeah, she wasn't. There was no more toe dipping. She was jumping right in, diving in
That's
head
true.
first.
Now, I'd be curious though. Also, Patrice, like with the
Mhm,
AD gig, was this something that you did it for 11 years? Sound like maybe you were at
mhm.
the same school. Did you really enjoy it, or you're like, hey, this is my ticket out of here. I'm done. I'm burnt out. I'm just ready for a change of scenery. Because for
No.
some people, it's like I really enjoy this thing, so I want to keep doing this. And so now I'm feeling
Mhm,
the tension of I really
mhm,
like what I'm doing, but I also see
mhm.
this other opportunity over here to support my spouse.
So I really, my 11 years there were really great. I love working with kids, and I really enjoyed my role as an athletic director. And like, there's a lot of administrative stuff in there, which I feel like I have a gifting with that. So I feel like that all fell together. And then I also love physical fitness and activity. I do personal training on the side as well. So that was kind of like, it kind of was all encompassing. And then also with my son going to school there, it kind of all fell together, and it felt great that this was something that, that I was called to do. But at the same time, there's a season for everything. And I felt like that 11 years was my season, and now it's time for a new season. So
Were you, Reggie, were you hesitant about even bringing this up about her leaving? Cause you just knew like, all right, no, like my wife genuinely enjoys what she's doing. And so I feel the tension of like pulling her away from this. And yeah, it's like beneficial to help me and help the business. And there's a lot of potential upside here, but I know she really enjoys this. And so did you feel any, I don't know, guilt or trepidation about going to her about this?
Absolutely not.
I was waiting for him to say
A-
that.
Absolutely not. No, no doubt about it. No, because a lot of, I would say like 90% of my gigs that I've done have been in the state of New
Mhm,
Jersey, at least between 75 and
Hmm.
90%. So I do about, I would say about 4 a month, anywhere about 4 a month. So it's like they're mainly
mhm.
local,
Yeah.
so if she's not working, she gets to travel
Yeah.
with me. So even though we're working, we get to be together. Like
Mhm,
today, I just did a commencement speech before we jumped on this podcast. And my son was there. He does my video production, right? My wife was there, so it's like I get to travel with them, and my son gets to experience things as a
mhm,
family, as one unit. So it just makes sense to me. I'm like, I understand you love the kids. I love kids too. That's why I do youth
Yeah.
mhm,
speaking. Okay, but you can love the kids and go back and volunteer and
mhm.
shake hands and kiss babies and do everything else on your own time.
Mhm.
Hey,
Very
Reggie, you mentioned something there that I don't know that I was aware of, that the majority of your gigs are relatively local. So would you guesstimate, like on an average month or an average year, like how many nights are you on the road? Are you away from home?
Oh, not. I would say. So let's just do the math. If you say 12 times 4 is 48, so let's just round it to 50. I would say 10%, five.
Really? Has
Mhm.
that been intentional
I'm
from the beginning of, hey, I just because some speakers have that approach of I just don't want to travel. I don't want to be home. I don't want to be gone from my family. I don't want to be on the road all the time. Like the life on the road is just a grind. It can be unhealthy for relationships in certain seasons. And so is that an intentional thing from the beginning?
Yeah. So I learned strategically, like since my dad wasn't involved in my life, I wanted to be present in my son's life as a father, but also be present for my wife as well, right? I didn't want her to feel like, as a speaker, she's now a single
Mm,
mom because I experienced some of that as a professional athlete. I was playing ball with guys, and their wives were home with the kids, and the wives kind of felt like when the husband came back home, he kind of messed up the normal routine and flow of everything because she was functioning like a single
yeah.
mom. I didn't want to have that dynamic, but at the same time, I wanted to be able to generate income. So I kind of have two buckets, Grant. So one is like youth speaker, one's professional development. So I'm generating about $500,000 right now from speaking, but it's in two buckets, but it allows me to do it local for the main part, and it's very
Mhm.
strategic.
And so even if you had opportunities to, because New Jersey is, it's not that big of a place. And so even if you had opportunities to start to expand and like, hey, I got invited to do something in, California or Nebraska or wherever that starts to add some bigger fees and some more opportunities, how would you kind of balance that or how do you think about that today?
Well, the beauty of it is I already got one out of the two. So my wife, my wife's retired, so she could come anywhere with me. And if it was that big of an opportunity, I would pull my son out of school and have him come with me.
is the is I guess one other big question within all of this is Patrice, you guys have been working together for a while now at this point, and
Mhm.
again kind of now really leaving your job going all in on this.
Mhm.
Are there How do you like blend the lines of yeah, this is my business partner, this is my assistant, but also like this is my wife, and this is
Mhm.
my husband, and so how do you guys navigate when you wear which hat?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So let me
Let's
give
just
some
we can just
scripture.
have an awkward silence there. That's fine.
No, so I think what helped me was this. So God in His providence, right? So for the listeners, like I only can speak from my perspective, which is a Christian
Yeah.
lens, right? So we go to church, and two of our really closest friends, he's a pastor, and obviously she's the pastor's wife, but they're also in business together as well, right? And he does extremely well in both spaces. And he had something called a couples escape. And it was a retreat where they allow couples to come that literally do what Patrice and I do, right? So we're married, but we're also business partners. And this entire retreat was about how to navigate those two spaces. And like when I say God's providence and God's sovereignty is because we went to that couples escape before my speaking career kind of took off. We kind of had a taste of what it was like as a professional athlete. She helped me out, but it wasn't to this magnitude because as a professional athlete, they do a whole lot for you. But in that couples escape really helped us because it kind of gave us the blueprint. They kind of laid out for us what it needs to look like in terms of being intentional. So I already had that in mind as a visionary. I'm like, okay, there's certain things. We're gonna have team meetings, we're gonna have our staff meetings and all that kind of stuff. But we're gonna make sure we allocate time for each other because that's number one. That's a
Yeah.
priority.
Give
So,
give us some more
that's
practical things that you guys do. Like, what do you do to make sure that like date nights don't become team meeting nights? And how do you make sure that we're just not always talking about business? And
Mhm.
like, how do you balance that? Any other like practical tips that you guys do on a week in week out basis?
I just think having boundaries, like we're going to do business between 8 and 6 or something like that, or 8 and 7, whatever it may be. But trying to not like, because I'm like a night owl, and so my mind, like at 11 o'clock, I'm like, all right, what can I tackle now? And he's like, it's time to go to bed, and so I would want to be asking questions of like, well, how do you want me to word this, or what do you think this should say? And he's like, that has to wait till tomorrow morning. So I've learned, like, don't come to bed and start asking questions about the business stuff. So we try to set a boundary there of like keeping it, to certain hours, and then stuff that's after 8 p.m. it's going to wait until the next day. And then
I,
obviously if we're on
Yeah.
date night, we're not talking about business stuff.
yeah.
Not just date night, Grant. It's like date night. It's the gym because my
Mhm.
wife will be on the elliptical, and I noticed this early on. She'll be on the
Checking
elliptical, and
email.
she'll be doing emails, and I'm like, no, like you're working out. This is your
Mhm.
time. I've always been very protective of her time. So even before this, it's like this is your time. You should have this time for
Mhm.
yourself, right? It's healthy for all of us. Work out at the gym. Take this hour and a half, 2 hours, and focus on
Mhm.
you, right? These emails, unless it's something that's emergent, like it can wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so let it wait. So work out, then do the stuff that you need to do. Date nights are date nights. It's our time to enjoy each other. It's our family time to enjoy for the three of us, or we go out with friends. That's just our time. And that time is, I call it
Mhm.
sacred, right? Like literally, it's sacred, it's precious. So let's preserve it.
It tends to be like either one person is has kind of stronger boundaries and kind of is they're kind of laying down the law. It sounds like Reggie, that may be you. And do you find like that's the case all the time, or do you kind of like ebb and flow? And there's times where maybe Patrice, you're more of the, he's wanting to talk business on a weekend, and you're like, nope, no, I can't hear you, not right now, honey. If you want to talk about this our son or marriage or whatever, I'm all in. But like we'll talk about, or Patrice, you more of like the, no, I want to talk about business all the time, and he's always having to like, no, not now. Like how do you two balance
I,
that?
I think it goes back and forth. I think it depends on what is upcoming and what's needed. And because I'm the one that's usually checking all of the emails and knowing what's coming up and what's going on, I feel like for me I have more of the problem with with the boundaries because I'm just always like get it done, get it done, get it done. Where I think he's better at like even if it wasn't for him, I would go to bed a lot later than I do, but he sets the boundary of like it's time to go to bed because we need to rest and that's important. And I even though I know that, I would push myself to like stay up till 1 to get something done and he's like the same thing you're doing at midnight could be done at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that about him. But yeah, he's good. He's better at holding the boundaries than I am.
And the other thing too with that is I learned this from a friend of mine's, Nehemiah Davis, or I should say acquaintance. Like Nehemiah Davis is he has something called MWAs. You ever heard of MWAs, Grant?
I don't know. Hit me with it.
Hit me with it. He says, don't spend time on NWAs, minimum wage
Okay.
activities. Delegate minimum wage activities. So I tell my wife all the time, don't spend time on the things that's going to make
Mhm.
$10. Spend time on things that's going to make the
Yeah.
10,000. Right? And the things that need to be done, that's minimum wage activities. That's why we have a team. We have VAs. So delegate stuff. One of the tensions in our relationship in terms of business has been if it's something I wouldn't say simple, but something that can be delegated. My wife's natural default is to do it herself,
Mm.
and I'm like, you don't need to do that. That's why we have staff in place.
Mhm.
Like trust their judgment and let them do it, and that's why we're paying them to do it. Let them do that activity, and you take the time, energy, and effort, and focus on something that's going to move the needle much
Yeah,
further.
that's good. The Patrice, I'm curious. Like, you Reggie used to play professional basketball. You kept stats and did rebounding, and
Mhm.
then Reggie is killing it as a speaker, and you're helping kind of behind the scenes. What do you guys do to make sure that you don't just um, you don't feel less than, or like, oh, I'm just Reggie's assistant and I'm his stat girl, back here behind the scenes, like how do you make sure that in your relationship that you don't feel like, no, I'm bringing something to the table here. Like we know here at the Speaker Lab, like no, Patrice is the real deal. Like she don't mess around. So Reggie may be a pretty face, but Patrice is way prettier and way nicer and way easier, better to work with, right? No offense, Reggie, we love you. So like Patrice, how do you think about that of just making sure like I don't want to just live in my husband's shadow?
So I feel like there's two parts to that. I will say the first part is I feel like Reggie is always very good at expressing appreciation and like supporting and like I guess acknowledging my value and like knowing that if you weren't here, I couldn't do all this without you, that type of thing. And
Yeah.
vocalizing that often I feel like is very helpful to like make me know that he's not taking me for granted. But also, I think just in my own self, knowing my own worth and value and knowing what I
Yeah.
bring to the table helps me to never feel less than or never feel like, you know, he's up here and I'm down here. Like
Yeah.
we're on an equal playing field. I have strengths and he has strengths, and we try to, balance each other with those. So yeah, I feel like it's two sided.
Yeah. Reggie, anything that you do intentionally to make sure that she doesn't feel like just she's just in a supporting role, but she's actually in a leading role?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, like she said, public acknowledgement. So I always acknowledge it in public because it's
Yeah.
true, right? Not just because it's the right thing to say, but it's true and accurate. My wife is highly intelligent. She's gifted. She's patient. She's kind. She's loving. You know, going back to when we first got married, there are people that doubted, my gifts and my dreams and my aspirations and my goals. And my wife has always been there, literally from day one, supporting me in some shape, form, or fashion. Even going back to our first condo, I remember, I know you have a story,
Yeah.
Grant, somewhat similar. Going back to our first condo, we had to have 5,000 to put down, and I didn't have enough money. My wife fronted like 75% of that down payment because she believed in us as a couple. So I would not be half of what I am right now if it wasn't for my wife. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for my grandmother
Yeah.
initially. So the quote from Maya Angelou, it rings true for me that I come as one, but I stand as
Mm.
10,000. So just because I have a mic in my hand, I've never lost sight of the fact that my wife has supported me tremendously. My son has been a great asset to me. I have, followers, especially on LinkedIn right now, thousands of followers, but that started because my son was doing the back end work. I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for my wife. And I mean that from the bottom of my
Yeah.
heart, because I wouldn't be who I am without them. And I want them to know it. And I want the world
Mm,
to know it.
that's good. Hey, let's wrap up with this. There are you guys obviously seem to have not only a great marriage, but you seem like have a great working relationship. So for someone who may be watching, listening to this, and maybe they're a step or two behind you, or maybe they're at the same stage and going like, all right, we're at a point where I'm considering bringing my spouse or significant other into the picture here, but I also I don't want it to jack up our relationship. We got a good thing going here, and I don't want to damage that. So, what advice would you give to another couple who may be considering working together?
For me, I would say make sure you keep the lines of communication open, that you can voice to each other frustrations as well as being able to praise one another about the things you think the other person is doing well, and being open to constructive criticism, but also being able, so it's always two sides, being able to deliver criticism in a way that doesn't demean the person, but just talk about the work that they're doing and whatever could be done better. And then also on the other hand, being able to accept that well and not take things personally. So I think especially when it's a marriage, I think that can be like when it's your boss at work. You can leave work and the boss made you angry and you don't have to go home and see them. But when you're working with your spouse, it's like they could have just did something that really annoyed you, but then you're going to go in the living room and they're still there. So so
Yeah,
you got to work
can't
you
escape
got to
them.
work through that, right? And be able to communicate well and talk about, your frustrations as well as the good things, and just be open to accepting whatever the other person has to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. What I would say is, to answer that question, Grant, is I would say your circle of influence. I would say it's necessary to have another couple, hopefully an older couple, or even if they are
Mhm.
peers, maybe they've been doing it longer than you. I think about my pastor. The quote that he says, "We all need a therapist for our
Mhm.
past and a coach for the
Yeah.
future." Right, and that came from Darius Daniels. And I think that's the same thing as we're working together in our marriage and working together as business partners. We need to have other people that we can bounce things off of. Even so much so that the reason why we split time between New Jersey and Atlanta, the reason why we have a house in Atlanta, we go there is so we can be in proximity to other couples who are married, who are in business
Yeah.
together. And one of my closest friends, every Sunday, he has couples come over that are in business together. They've been married just like Patrice and I, and we break
Hmm.
bread. It's encouraging, it's inspiring, it's motivating, it's
Mhm.
empowering, and it's a mere reflection of like what marriage could look like and what unity could look like in business, right? And even personally, if you're committed to one another, right? So I think, I think the power of proximity is important to have other couples in your life that can help guide you and nurture, what you're currently
Yeah,
doing.
very well said. Well, hey, thanks to both of you for tolerating each other and coming on here and sharing that with us. We appreciate it. We got a ton of respect for both of you and what you're doing, the kind of impact that you're making, and the kind of example that you're setting for other couples that are out there. Again, I know we talked about this in a previous episode, Reggie, but if people want to find out more about you, what you're doing on the speaking front, where can we go? Where can we find you online?
ReggieWrightJr.com. That's ReggieWrightJr.com. Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook is Dr. Reggie Wright Jr. That's Dr. Reggie Wright Jr. And those are the social media handles, Dr. Reggie Wright or
Awesome,
ReggieWrightJr.com.
man. Hey, and if you're listening, watching, maybe you're considering one of the programs here at the Speaker Lab and working with us to build and grow your speaking business like Reggie has. You want to talk to Reggie, actually, you can reach out to him directly, either on social or hit him up on email, Reggie@thespeakerlab.com, Reggie@thespeakerlab.com. There's a decent chance Patrice is going to see that email before he does, but that's a separate issue. So, hey, we appreciate you guys being here. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Hey, appreciate it, Greg. Thank you so much.
Take care.